Key milestones will be the scoping study, maiden resource, moving through these studies. That's when the institutional investors have to come in and say, well, hang on, this is going to be a mine again.
What are they buying into? What have you said to get a premium like that? Because for them, it's not a lot of money. It's a step change for you potentially in terms of what you can do to unrelease the potential, in Vietnam, right? So what have you had to give away?
They understand that they're not the only ones and they need to tread carefully. There's not many assets like this left around the globe.
Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. First of all, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it, give us a thumbs up and do leave your comments below. It really helps us try and understand the sorts of questions and thoughts and ideas that you have with regards to companies and the things that you're looking from us. If you haven't already done so, please click the button in the corner of this screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And of course, if you want to see more videos like this, click the notification bell. We spoke earlier today to Scott Williamson, who is the MD of Blackstone Minerals. They're an Australian explorer with multiple assets, but they're focusing on their Vietnam Ta Khoa Nickel asset. They've recently been funded by EcoPro, a Korean industrial partner. This money will allow them to get through to BFS stage, at which point they're going to have to make some decisions as to who they continue to partner with and where indeed the funding comes from to develop this out. Because they're looking to get into production within 3 years. Ambitious target indeed. Can they do it? We'll find out by listening to what Scott has to say. Hello Scott, how are you, sir?
Good, thanks, Matt.
So where are you in the world at the moment?
Yeah, so in the self-isolation mode in Perth with my family and trying to stay away from the streets and stay safe.
Yeah, no, we spoke to a couple of guys in Perth yesterday. They said glorious weather, so it's not too bad a place to be holed up, right?
Yeah, it's great.
Can't be bad. Hey, so you've, why don't we kick off the 1 minute overview and then we'll kind of get into some of the more recent news.
Yeah, so we're the Blackstone Minerals. We have a portfolio of battery and precious metals assets across the globe. Our flagship asset is the Ta Khoa Nickel Project in northern Vietnam. That's a previously operating mine, so it operated between 2013 and 2016. And the previous owners sunk over $130 million into the capital infrastructure. So our focus is to bring this mine back into production. A little bit of a different strategy to the previous owners of that asset. When we're looking to, feed this nickel into the lithium-ion battery industry, and we're looking to, work with strategic partners to develop downstream processing and which will, move this nickel concentrate into a premium product, which is the nickel sulfate for the lithium-ion battery industry. So, yeah, looking forward to the next stage of that process.
Fantastic. Obviously, we talked back in November when you were in London for a conference there, and we sort of went through your, the history and so forth. I think people can refer back to that interview because you had a few other assets around the world, which obviously the cobalt. Which obviously market conditions meant that it makes sense to park that up and focus on your nickel asset. So let's do that today. You have just announced some rather good news, haven't you?
Yeah, so we're placing a strategic shareholder in EcoPro. So EcoPro is the largest cathode manufacturer in Korea and the second largest in the world. EcoPro's main customers are Samsung, SDI, and another group called SK Innovation. So these are two of the biggest battery manufacturing companies in the world. And so we're very, very well positioned now with a $6.8 million investment at a 62% premium to market. And I think that premium just shows that these, larger battery players are focused on a longer term future and this EV revolution isn't slowing, and if anything, it could actually be heating up even more so as the economy moves back into sort of stimulus mode.
Okay, so obviously 6.8 it's a nice sum of money to get, and I want to talk about what you're going to do with that in a second. But a premium like that, what was that conversation like? What are they buying into? What have you said? Because I think a lot of people want to know how you go about negotiating. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so I suppose the premium is there because we believe that's a suitable premium to bring in a strategic partnership. So the partnership is, I suppose, around them potentially over time getting access to the nickel. So it's at this stage, it's a fairly, I suppose, early investment for them. It's a small investment. They do end up with a 17% shareholding in Blackstone. But we believe that the premium is fair and reasonable because it's a strategic position that allows them over time, they will have access to the metal that they need for the lithium-ion battery industry.
Well, can we talk about the terms around that one? Because that's what I was really getting at too. Because, you know, what have you had to give away to get a premium like that?
Yeah.
Because for them, it's not a lot of money. Okay, it really isn't a lot of money. For you, it's meaningful, and it's a step change for you potentially in terms of what you can do to unrelease the potential, you know, in Vietnam, right? So, what have you had to give away?
So they will have a board position. So the EcoPro will have a position on the Blackstone board. So that's one thing we've had to give away. The other condition precedent is we have to exercise the option to own the Ta Khoa Nickel Project. So we will exercise that option, which is $1 million worth of Blackstone shares we will need to give to the vendor. The other thing, I suppose, is that there's a best endeavours relationship here where we now move to this next stage, which is the joint venture on the downstream processing facility. So it's not a formal I suppose, partnership at this stage, but the next stage would be to now move towards this partnership where we partner on the downstream processing facility, and we both then, I suppose, move to that next stage over the coming 6 to 12 months.
But that's all upside for you, right? I mean, obviously, you're able to pay the previous or the current owner of the asset, giving a board seat away, so what? But, you know, are you saying, well, we could potentially do something further downstream? That's great for you. You've got a big partner with big pockets, who are strategic as well as just being, you know, rather than just dumb money, as it were, as I usually call it. That's great for you. But why have they paid you so much? Do they feel that they've taken up some kind of option? Was there some kind of race going on?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. So what they do realise is they're not the only ones that we're talking to. So we're talking to other Korean players, major battery manufacturers. So they realise that they're not the only one in the room here. We're also talking to other, I suppose, mining companies as well. So we made it fairly clear to them that we're open to talking to all parties. And so they've jumped first, which is great because they're entrepreneurial and they saw the opportunity, but they also realised that they couldn't put any real, I suppose, difficult terms around this deal because we would have potentially moved on to the next party that we're talking to. So they understand that they're not the only ones and they need to tread carefully because we've got the metal and the nickel that these players need to produce this battery. So yeah, so they've played it very smartly and so they now have the jump on the rest of the pack, but they're by no means the only one that we're going to deal with over time. Okay,
cool. That's interesting. So you're saying there's no kind of right of first refusal in there. There's no options on this, whatever this downstream deal looks like. That they are not secure in that sense. All they've done is paid you a premium so that you think that they're a fair partner. But in a commercial world, you've still got choices because there's nothing in what you're telling me. There's nothing in paper which ties you down to EcoPro moving forward, other than they've got 17% of the company. That's quite good.
That's right.
It's good for shareholders.
We're very happy. So that and I think the reason we were able to get a deal like this is because of the fact that there's not many assets like this left around the globe, particularly because our CapEx potential is much lower than our peers, and we talked about this last time. So they see this as an opportunity whereby they do have to tread carefully because we do have options here, and we have an asset that will deliver before a lot of our peers. So it's got that ability to produce that nickel that's required in the next 2 to 3 years. A lot of our peers will struggle to deliver in that timeline because of the CapEx hurdles, and obviously even more so now with the difficult capital markets.
Yeah, okay, and we'll talk about the asset in a second if you don't mind. Okay, so what's the reaction been like in the market to this announcement, and what's the share price done?
So we went up. We're not trading anywhere near the issue price of these shares to EcoPro. So I think we got intraday about 16 cents. These shares will be placed at 17 cents. So I think it's a fair reaction. I think the market will take some time to digest this, and I'm not sure that the market understands who EcoPro is. And over time, it's not a big name like Samsung or LG, but over time people will do their research and realise that this is one of the major players in the cathode industry globally. So this is the perfect partner for Blackstone. So yeah, I think we're in a market where you're going to get profit taking, and unfortunately we saw a bit of that today, but we'll see what tomorrow brings. Okay,
well, I guess it's down to you to tell the story, right? Because I was the same way, I was like, who's EcoPro? I just didn't know, but I think once you get some sort of comfort that they will probably, if you deliver, want to follow their money, as you say, to secure either some kind of offtake agreement or other agreement. Okay, well let's talk about those assets then. You told us it's got 130 million bucks already sunk into it from previous mining operations. Can you just remind people why it shut down and what you're going to be doing going forward?
So it shut down at the bottom of the nickel price. So $8,000 per tonne nickel price when the mine was put into care and maintenance. The reason it was put into care and maintenance was also the fact that they actually mined the first ore body and depleted it, and they didn't do any exploration outside of that first ore body. So there was no exploration conducted by the previous owners. They left behind 25 exploration targets, which we're now moving through, and we've just drilled out the first of those 25 targets. The first target is called the Vanfoot Disseminated Ore Body. We believe will be a mine for the next 10 to 20 years. And so that's the other reason why we're able to, entice or attract these end users, is we've got a mine that justifies a significant investment from the end user because we can deliver the nickel over the long term. So, which a lot of our peers will have smaller mine lives and won't be able to justify building that downstream processing facility, which we'll now look at.
Okay, so what I want to talk about is obviously what you're going to be able to do with whatever amount of that 6.8 million is going to go in the ground, because you've got quite good grades. I mean, over 1% on average across the board with looking at some of the drill results. So that's pretty good. What you don't have currently is a sense of the scale of this, how big this could be. So what are you going to do with whatever money that you're going to spend from the 6.8?
Yeah, so we're still on track for our maiden resource in June, July this year. And then we'll follow that very quickly with our scoping study, or PEA as they call it in Canada. And that will be the moment where the market realises how much nickel has been left behind and how much or how economic that first ore body will be. So they're two key milestones. The $6.8 million will also be used for exploring other ore bodies, but at the same time, we'll also move these studies all the way through to a bankable feasibility study. So with $6.8 million, we're actually funded all the way through to complete a bankable study. Our cost profile or cost structure in Vietnam means we can get a lot more done. We're drilling for $60 a metre versus in Australia that would be $300 or in Canada it was $500 a metre. So we can do a lot more with the $6.8 million in Vietnam than people with a similar amount would need to invest in Australia. And So we're confident we can get all the way through to a bankable study, and that's the idea of this capital injection from EcoPro is they saying, how much do you need to finish your bankable study? Here it is, bang.
So, and you probably won't answer this, but what the results will come out in May, June, July sometime, right? The scoping study. What do you know today? Are you encouraged by what you see in terms of where this ore body sits? In terms of what do you know about it? What can you tell us?
So, what we can say is that, I think we'll go back to your first question, the 1% nickel. We've got a significant amount of this 1% nickel, which is this King Copper discovery zone. That is twice the grade that we were expecting. So we were happy with anything around 0.5% nickel. As you know, there's some of our peers that are looking to mine even less than that or lower grade. So we've got a significant tonnage at these higher grades. This will deliver a 10 or 20 year mine. So it'll be an economic mine also because we've got the platinum, palladium, gold, rhodium, copper, cobalt. Byproduct credits will deliver up to 20% extra revenue on top of the nickel. So there's 80% of the revenue will come from nickel. We've also got all these other metals in there.
How do you know you're going to be able to economically create byproducts with all of those different commodities?
Yeah, so we're doing that metallurgical test work now. The previous owners didn't assay for PGEs, so this is a new part of the mine that wasn't previously understood. So we're doing that initial work now, but we're confident that those metals will all float into the concentrate, and so you will be able to monetize them.
Where's that confidence? Where's that confidence come from, Scott? Because obviously many companies think that until the metallurgy work is done. So, what do you know?
Yeah, we've done early stage bench scale test work. Yeah, so we need to do the numbers around that. At the moment, we don't know who the customer might be for palladium or rhodium. So there's a bit of work to do, but we do know we can recover them. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So back to the scale question: is what do you know today about how far this goes out? I mean, how much historical drilling data have you got, for instance?
So we've got, I suppose, the things we can talk about are we've got a kilometre long ore body. It's 500 metres wide. There's multiple millions of tonnes, so multiple tens of millions of tonnes of economic nickel sulfide in the first ore body. So if we were to build a 2 million tonne per annum concentrator, we might be looking at a 10 to 20 year mine life. So yeah, there's sort of numbers we're looking at.
Okay, and I know you haven't done the scoping study with PEA at the moment, but you talk about being funded through to BFS. What type of CapEx numbers would we be talking about? Because again, you've referenced low CapEx compared to peers who may be talking about $1 billion to kind of get dealing with laterites, but so, sulfide projects a little bit cheaper. So what do you know?
Yeah, so what we can say is that the numbers are still looking very competitive. Circa $100 million US or for a downstream processing facility. We still would need to upgrade the concentrator, so there's another capital spend there which we're still doing the work on, but I'm confident we'll land below, say, 200 million total. So yeah, we're still 20% of a HPAL scenario. So yeah, we're aiming for that 10 to 20% compared to that $1 billion HPAL plant, which is our main competitor.
Right. No. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's very, very different. And I think we've done enough, interviews with people talking about the difference between laterites and sulfides ore bodies. So, so 200 million market cap. Again, where would you? I mean, because you're going to talk about getting into production in the next 2 to 3 years, right? That's pretty quick in the scheme of things.
Unfortunately, I've now signed up EcoPro, and they're not going to accept anything less. And and they're going to keep me accountable to that. And that's fine, because my background being a mining engineer, I'm happy to go forward with this. And the good thing is now we've got the funding partner, so that won't be the bottleneck. So going forward, funding won't be the bottleneck. We obviously need to push very quickly through these studies, and obviously we don't want to be cutting corners on any of that, drilling and metallurgy, and so there's a lot of study work, but there's still 12, 18 months of studies here, and then we can build in 2022 and mining in 2023. So that's EcoPro will keep me accountable to that, and I'm happy, because as long as they keep funding it, I can deliver that.
Well, fantastic. If they keep funding it, great, happy days. You can focus on running the business, not running around the world chasing money, right? So that's well, not that we can at the moment, but yeah, you know what I mean. So if I look at this project, I need to understand it from an investment perspective. Okay, that's what people watching here are trying to work out. Is like, what am I buying into? So you're saying it's a quick to production, low capex, high grade nickel project. Obviously, you've seen a bump in the shares today. Hasn't really done much prior to that, because you've been working out what you're trying to be and what you're trying to focus on, what you're trying to do. What can shareholders look forward to this year or even next year in terms of proper catalyst moments? Because I think, drill results come and go and no one cares, right? But what are you going to be able to tell people which is going to significantly move this company along? What are those big moments?
Yeah, I think the first one will be that maiden resource. So we can really wrap some numbers around the resource, tons and grade, and you'll see the grade of these other byproducts as well. So that'll be June, July. And then the scoping study is probably the biggest milestone, because that's when we start to put NPVs around this. So I've obviously talked about CapEx, but we're obviously aiming for NPVs that are multiples of our CapEx number. And so there'll be a moment here when people realise that the market cap, whatever it is, 20 or 30, we're talking multiple $100 million of NPV here. So that's the moment where the market goes, okay, so there's an NPV of that. They've got the funding partner. There's already been a mine built there before, so there'll be a mine there again. It has to sink in eventually. Key milestones will be the scoping study, maiden resource, moving through these studies. That's when the institutional investors have to come in and say, well, hang on, this is going to be a mine again. So, yeah, I think it's when we wrap the numbers around it. I mean, and obviously it's very difficult to do that until we do the formal JORC process and all that. So that'll come.
No, okay, you got a lot of the right parts there. I mean, I guess the big one that people are looking at, obviously, the fact that you've got a partner. Are you going to be brave enough to say you're fully funded through to production?
The conversations we're having is that they still want us to bring our own capital.
Okay.
And the reason why is that they don't want to be left holding the baby. And there's a great story, and it's the Ambitobi mine in Madagascar, where Korea blew themselves up, and Korea learned the hard way. They don't want to be left holding the baby here, and so they do want us to bring our own capital to the table. But you could almost say we're fully funded, because within Korea, I think we can bring all that capital to the table. And so we'll start working with other players as well here. So, yeah, we're close. But we'll still need conventional capital markets at some stage.
Okay. Which you expect to get from Korea or elsewhere in the world?
Well, there are pockets of money out there, and they are harder to find that can invest in this type of opportunity. And so we're hunting those down at the moment. There's a chance that we could fund this almost entirely through Korean money, but that's not a good strategy either. We need to expand and look at all the options.
Yeah, I think as you referred earlier, your optionality around the funding is important to you in terms of negotiation, or else you'll find your money all of a sudden gets quite expensive if you're reliant on one partner. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, so lots of good stuff there, Scott. Appreciate you coming on and telling us all about it. Obviously, you've moved things significantly from November to today. It's only 4 short months. Well, actually, I feel like very long weeks at the moment with this confinement. But you know what I mean. I look forward to hearing about the scoping study and any of these other results as they come through. But you've identified quite a good asset there. I hope you can get all the way through to this BFS quickly. What's your timing on that, actually, the BFS?
So 12 to 18 months from now, I think we can deliver that. So scoping studies as soon as we can, so sort of August, September, PFS soon after. The conversion from scoping to PFS will be fairly quick, because we're hoping that most of our resource will be in that indicated category, so we can convert to PFS quickly. There is a lot of work to get into that bankable stage, which is pilot plants, and so that's a 12 to 18 month process.
Actually, you raise an interesting point before we go. Is would EcoPro fund any pilot or demonstration plants, or is that going to be part of the larger funding? Yeah,
so by that stage we would have, I suppose, built our partnership to a formal, like a SPV type scenario where we would actually fund that together. Yeah.
Okay. Enough said, Scott. Appreciate your time. I know it's getting late there. Time for a beer, I suspect. So I'll let you go and do that. Stay in touch and give us a call.
No worries. Thanks.